problem.
Great.
Yeah. So do you want me to share the slide or?
I'm sorry, because we still have like 8 minutes and we still waiting for our student to join, because like several students still in the class. So we hope that, actually we hope that it will be like various students from class of 2020 and 2020. I'm sorry, I'm
21.
forget about the numbers.
21.
So 21. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, 21.
Just,
Okay.
first
So
year
because
student, yeah.
yeah, because actually we now we still in the planning practice in several area. So we hope that our lecture will give so many perspectives to the student. We hope
That would be good. Yeah.
No
No problem. I hope that my lecture would be useful for you.
Of course.
Yeah, no problem.
Pak Ruko is already here. Pak Ruko is the Secretary of Master Program in Planning. And he's also Australian graduate. He finished PhD at the Griffith University.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
Hi, nice to see you. Dr.
Nice to see you
Swapan.
again. Yeah, nice to see you. Yeah.
Thank you, Pak Ruko. And we have also here Mina. Hello, Mina. How are you? Very nice to see you again.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having
Hi, Mina.
Mohammad with us. I'm just here to support and really learn something today.
Thank you very much.
you.
Your support is very helpful. Thank you very much, Mina. Okay, Mina is from International Office from Faculty
Good morning,
of
Mina.
Faculty of, because not Faculty of Engineering, so I'm a little bit misspell for the faculty. Mina, can you spell it for us, please?
Yeah, our Urban and Regional Planning and Sustainability sits in Faculty of Humanities. So yeah, we represent the Faculty of Humanities, but you know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We're still waiting for another student. Okay. How are you exactly? It's there in Australia. Is it quite good for the case or?
Yeah, like in part we really don't have any cases. Like we have closed down our borders, so no one can enter. We can't go outside. So that's why it's like inside it's really good. But we have some cases in the eastern states, but they have already opened up from 1st of November. So people can go outside like overseas and come from there. But in Perth, we are probably looking around early February to open up the border.
Yes.
So yeah, so we are still living in the cave.
Okay, rather than say bubble, let's say.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate. But that we're very excited that we are making, the Western Australia also is making a blueprint to receive international traveler from, we're expecting sometime January and February as well. So we'll be nicely ready and by the time when we receive Undip students.
Definitely.
Okay, so for the activity for the universities, all is still online.
Mohammed, would you like to comment?
Yeah, no, in fact, like we are very lucky that last year, just for a few months, we went online, but after that, we are all face to face. So the semesters are running like normal.
Wow.
Yeah, so we really don't have any issues due to COVID, but you know that Sydney and Melbourne, they are having a tough time in there, in those universities. But in Western Australia, we are really lucky that we are just living like in normal life.
There is still obligation to wear mask or when you outside, no?
No.
No?
Because we don't have any cases.
Okay.
So yeah, there is no requirement. But like we have like the general kind of normal kind of rules are there because of the COVID is what we call the new normal. So like the university has all kind of like rules and regulation for hygiene and all kind of stuff. And we have some contingency planning. So sort of ready, like if there is an outbreak, what we need to do. So for an example, the university has advised to carry the laptop and everything with the staff. So if you are stuck somehow in other places and new cases and lockdown, you can still continue your work. So those kind of emergency planning are in place.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Isn't it? Like, we find it quite lucky and quite amazing that for a couple of years now, within Western Australia, we've been living like just normal.
Yeah.
Going on a camping and holiday and having small ceremonies and all, just like normal days, and we felt quite incredibly lucky.
And also like it has contributed a lot for the local economy because we are not going outside, so people are spending money within Western Australia because like Bali is the main destination from Western Australia, but people are not going there. All the holidays they are spending here, so it's kind of like somehow positive coming out for the local businesses and like the other like kind of holiday services. So yeah, there are some pluses and minuses.
So the airport is not closed too. It's still open for international travelers.
So far, I know it's not open. Mina, you know anything like?
Oh, so it's not, well, per se. We don't have a international visitors coming in at the moment. So that's the plan from January, February, because that's the stage we expect our vaccination rate within Western Australia will reach about 90%. So we have reached about 80% at the moment. But all the travelers need to be fully vaccinated by then to come into the airport.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we can start now while waiting for the others to join, because it's like maybe several of them will join us lately. Okay, thank you very much. I will open this directly. Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining with us in Urban and Regional Scientific Forum International Lecture Series 7. Planning for Sustainable City and Region with Dr. Swapan from Curtin and Dr. Jawoto from Diponegoro University. I will act as a moderator today, but I think we will have like a very fruitful discussion with our two lecturers today. So before I will jump for our first session for Dr. Swapan, let me read a little bit about the curriculum vitae of Dr. Swapan. Okay, Associate Professor Mohammad Swapan, Ph.D., maybe a little bit like to say about senior lecturer, is a director of graduate research in the School of Design and the Built Environment at Curtin University. He received a doctoral degree in urban and regional planning and postgraduate in environmental studies from Australia and New Zealand, respectively. Dr. Swapan research interests include urban environmental management, public open space, community engagement in planning, and international comparative urbanism. Okay, for today lecture, Dr. Swapan will give us insight about water-sensitive cities, sustainable water management, and design approach. Okay, I don't want to ask more time, so I will give the time and the screen to you, Dr. Swapan, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mada. So should I share my screen or?
Yes, you can share directly your screen. Okay.
Can you see it or?
Yes, very clear. Thank you.
All right. Is it full screen now?
Yes. Maybe you need to click for the presentation view, because we still look for your notes. Maybe it's okay.
Okay. So how can I do that?
Display setting. You can click display setting at the top of your screen.
Display setting.
In the middle of the menu bar, display setting.
There's like show taskbar, display setting, and slideshow in the top of your screen. Do you see it?
Display setting, and then choose
no, I can't see. There's the.
Yeah,
at the top
before
of your
and slideshow.
Is
left, top left, almost top left.
Yeah,
almost
above your slide, there is a button and display setting, and then you can click that, and then the other menu will appear.
Or maybe we have different screen.
Yeah. Just give me another shot.
Okay. So while waiting, Dr. Swapan, for everyone participant, if you have any question during the Dr. Swapan lecture, you can directly type in the chat if you don't want to ask directly, but we have like Q&A session in the end of this session. So, okay, it's much...
Is that okay now or?
We still see the outline actually.
Presenter view. So you need to change to the normal view.
Okay, so sorry about the wait.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's going back to that view.
Yeah.
So where I can get the display one?
Slide show first, and then.
The next.
Yeah, next to the show taskbar, there is a menu.
Okay, I see. Let's try again. No, it's just showing the taskbar, but I can see.
Okay. So
I can see any display setting over here.
Next to show taskbar.
Yeah, next to
do
show
you see
taskbar,
display setting
display
drop
setting.
down?
No, I can't see anything in there.
Okay. So
okay, I think it's okay.
Just stop share. Put again.
Or maybe you want to send your presentation to me and I will share screen for you if you continue with that, or we stick with there's outline in.
Let me try again.
Okay, we still while waiting, there are so many students join with us.
I can only see the show taskbar, but there is no display setting in there.
Okay. Hide presenter view.
That one. Hide
presenter view.
Yeah. You're floating. Yes.
That one.
Just click it.
That one.
Good. All right.
Okay,
good.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
All right. No problem. Sorry for the wait. All right. Good morning from Perth, Western Australia, Curtin University. So as you already know that I'm Mohammad Swapan. I'm senior lecturer and director of graduate research in the School of Design and Built Environment. So I teach in urban and regional planning, and by profession, I'm also a planner. And but I also have another role in the school to look after all the PhD students. So we have around like 88 PhD students in the schools working on architecture, planning, construction management, and other disciplines. So I'm also coordinating the entire research degrees in the schools as well. I have keen interest on working on the cities in the like the Asian countries and also in Australian cities. My research interest is mainly around sustainability and disaster management and GIS applications in planning and decision making. So today I'll be talking about the water sensitive cities, which is very popular and increasing trend among the planners within major cities in Australia to make the cities more sustainable and to achieve the sustainability goals over here. Before I go into details, so there is a bit of like lecture outline today. First, I would like to give you a bit of background on the development trends in Australian cities. So that will help you to understand that the technology of water sensitive cities and the context and the policies around that. So if that will be kind of like background information about the cities and the development we have here. Then I'll discuss about the concept of water sensitive cities and different water sensitive urban design practices and indexing and valuation of the benefits we are getting from water sensitive urban design. And of course, the challenges across the globe, like including Australia, and probably how that can be meaningful in Indonesian cities as well. So let's get into details. So you probably aware that like Australian cities are very low density cities. And if you compare with major like the mega cities in Asia, for example, like Jakarta or Kuala Lumpur, Dhaka or Delhi, the first graph on the right hand side, I tried a bit of comparison about the population density, and you can see that like the Australian cities you can really figure out in the graph. Like we have around 300 to 400 people living in a per square kilometer area, and about like 3.8 to 4.9 households per hectare. So which is like lowest across the globe. Whereas like in Jakarta, you probably have around like 13,000 people living in per square kilometer or 7,000 in KL, which is very high. So we have a very much like different sort of planning challenges. So we are struggling with the urban sprawling and the negative impacts from like low density, because when you spread out, then government needs to provide services and facilities. You have to travel, and that will link to the pollution and climate change impact. So there are several issues, and you'll find lots of literature about the demerits or negative impacts of urban sprawling. And particularly for in the Perth, which is the capital city of Western Australia, and you'll see that like the sprawl is significant. If you look into this timeline data from 1925 and from the current situation, you'll see that like the growth is very high, like, and it is not kind of like densified development. It's more like along the coast, which is like spreading around like 150 kilometers and with very low density development. So it has put sort of like different kinds of development challenges. And a bit of background about the strategic planning. And you'll see that like we had our first planning in 1955, and we have a number of metropolitan strategic planning. So the first three plans until 1990, those plans in fact contributed a lot for low density development. But then we realized the environmental issues and the planning challenges afterwards, and the subsequent strategic planning, for an example, like Direction 2031 and the most recent one, which is Perth and Peel at 3.5 million. These are more oriented towards high density development. So now government is trying to achieve more urban consolidation and trying to limit the development towards the urban periphery. And the other planning challenges also, we have like 78% of the houses are single detached house. So people love to live in a single house rather than apartments. And they really want their, we call it Great Australian Dream, which is like having your own house with wide backyard and enough space within the house. And it has like, you'll see a lot of houses like that. So it's not diversified. It's very kind of like monocentric design. And then more than 3/4 of the population, they're fully dependent on the private vehicle. And the public transport is not very popular here, and it's not servicing well in terms of connecting people from different suburbs to the city center. So that's why people are more reliant on private vehicles, and it also like obviously contributing in a number way in terms of pollution, congestion, and you can see from the data that like the congestion is around like $1 billion in 2019. The other problem is 43% of potable water is coming from the groundwater. So in the age of climate change, we are really concerned about this dependency on the groundwater, because groundwater is kind of like replacing very soon, and we need to find out different options. How can we maximize different sources to continue to have our the supply of water in the city? So starting from the water issues, in this graph, you can see that like by 2060, we are having a great challenge in terms of the demand versus supply of water. So we are having, in fact, like a deficit of 365 gigaliters, which is projected by 2060. And every year we are having this kind of mismatch between the supply and the water demand. So we really need to think about like how we can address these challenges within the city. And there are other issues about, as I mentioned, about like the higher dependency on the groundwater. That's another challenge, is like to find out more different types of water sources. So we have the overarching planning agenda, the global planning agenda, like new urban agenda and sustainable development goals. So it's not only the Australian government, but also the academic institutions and planning professionals and practitioners. They're also trying to achieve or maximizing the use of water, and how the water can be connected with the urban development. So water, we can relate the issue of water with all like 17 goals of sustainable development goals. But particularly, we are more concerned about SDG 11, which is sustainable communities and cities. Probably we need to find out how we can manage this water in a better way and more efficient way. So the water issues becoming very challenging when and complex in urban context. So when there are more development, we are ended up with having more impervious surface. So you'll see more kind of like concrete, and there is a lack of places from where the water can penetrate the soil. So there are a lot of issues about flooding and the stagnant water within the city. So these are really problematic in a growing city. And the other kind of like trend within the water management system that we try to remove the stormwater from the community as quickly as possible. So like these are some kind of traditional practice that through the drainage channel or any other sewage channel, we try to remove this water as quickly as possible. But that has come up with some problem with the traditional water system, and we have different examples and instances from different countries that sometimes this stormwater or sewage water mix up with the potable water and create another kind of health problems in different cities. So what we have found that conventional water management, which is like more compartmental. So one organization probably looking into the drainage system, another organization is looking into the water supply system. Completely different organizations are looking after urban parks and playgrounds and all kind of stuff. Another organization is looking into the urban development. So these all are compartmental, and there is no interconnection between these different sectors. So they are working as silos, which is making a problem. So this diagram is very effective, and we always use this diagram as a starting point for water sensitive cities. So in this diagram, you can see that it mainly reflecting the growth of a city. So when the city just starts, then people or engineers are more concerned about the water supply system. So there are a lot of investment on water supply. Then we move into when we have more population, and then we think about the sewage system. So then the engineers run after designing the sewage system. From there, we move into the drainage system, channelizing the drainage facilities and all kind of stuff. So these are like different aspects. And at the end, which is the like aspirational targets that water sensitive cities. Water sensitive cities is more like a vision or a goal or aspirational. So connecting all these, removing the silos, removing the kind of like compartmentalization within the city. So I'll give you some more example coming up. So what is the proposal from water sensitive cities, or the concept is promoting that like water needs to be connected with the other components within the city for about like urban parks, street trees. So water is not a separate entity. We need to combine and connect everything together so we can achieve like urban amenity, and then we can reduce the heat island effect, and we can have a more livable community. For an example, like if you have a suburb or a residential area which is close to a nice view of the river, obviously you will get more kind of housing price in there. So people are willing to pay more in those areas. So the aspirational target, the water sensitive city, it needs to be livable. So it can create a livable residential environment. It can be more resilient. So because it is connected with different options, so it like contribute to the resiliency of the community. And then I'll give some example as well. More sustainable outcome we can get out from there, and it needs to be more economically viable. As I mentioned about the housing price. So if it is not economically viable, then we really can't say that that is sustainable. So the history of water-sensitive cities, we can trace back to 2004 when in the National Water Initiative document, we discussed first time in Australia about this application of water-sensitive urban design. And then we have more like Commonwealth direction, and we have more kind of like guidelines coming up from different cities. Like Melbourne is very much like ahead of application of water-sensitive cities in Australia. So basically, three principles we are talking about water-sensitive cities. The first one is cities as water supply catchment. The meaning of it is creating more sources of water. So for an example, in Perth City, we are trying to increase the number of desalination plants. So we have some operational plants, and we also trying to increase the number. The other option could be like harvesting the rainwater within the household area, and also trying to find out like more sources of water. So basically that is reducing the reliance on groundwater supplies. And we know that because of the climate change, we'll have less rainfall, and we might see droughts and those kind of things more often. So if we can create different sources of water, that will make the communities more resilient. Another principle is cities providing ecosystem services, is basically connecting the water with the urban landscape. So if you channel all the water coming out from the households, the wastewater, and if we can recycle it and then channel it to the urban parks to give the water to the trees. So this is the way of how we can connect the different kind of like residential areas and public open spaces. So those kind of system is like you get more benefits of ecosystem services. And we also call it like fit for purposes. So we know that like for drinking water, we need the high quality water, but if it is a low quality water, we can use it for irrigation, for watering the plants. So these are like, we are telling fit for purpose. So you need to create those kind of different standard of water, and need to increase more instruments for recycling the water. The last one is cities comprising water sensitive communities. So it's not only the instruments, but also the community behavior. So reduce the water use. So these are like on the right hand side, you see that these are the some kind of targets by 2030 in Western Australia. So reduce water use by 30%. So this is more about the residential water use. But then this principle also promotes the innovation and practice by the government. So we need to work more in an integrated way to serve the purpose of water sensitive cities. So these are like the three principles which is very important for water sensitive cities in Australia. So that's the concept or the vision or the goal of the water sensitive cities. But then the application is more like we can achieve through different types of urban design. So the urban water sensitive urban design is a planning and design philosophy to minimize the hydrological impacts of urban development or the surrounding environment. So now we are talking about what are the different applications, how we can achieve the goal or objectives of water sensitive cities within the communities. There are different options. There are different practices are getting kind of like popular. And it's not in Australia only, but if you look into the practice across the globe, you'll see that China is doing sponge city principles. Singapore have ABC waters. New Zealand or United States, they have low impact development. And then UK, they are called like sustainable urban drainage system. And in Canada, Vancouver's rain city strategy. So it's the same concept, but different names, but the principles are quite similar. And in terms of the application of water sensitive cities principles, we have different scales. So within the community, we can get through different kind of like, for an example, if you put highly efficient water fixtures in the home, then you can achieve the first step of water sensitive cities. All right, the kind of like the goals. And if you connect the stormwater and then recycle it and then put it for planting, so that another kind of like practices we can get. So in the next few slides, I'll be talking more about different examples like water sensitive urban design, nature-based solutions. So what are the practice currently we are having in Western Australia? So I'll give you some few examples which might help to understand how the different kinds of benefits and the goals and objectives of water sensitive cities can be achieved. So the most popular one, we call it rainwater gardening. So rainwater gardening is a small patch of garden which you'll find in the street verge or like a corner of the street. And it is something like you put some native plants or trees, and there is a filtration chamber underneath of the surface. So basically you get the rainwater and serving the plants and also channelizing the recycled water through the main pipe. So this is kind of like practice is really getting very popular in many local government areas. This is an example of artificial creek. So this is a kind of like a living stream created within the suburbs. So it has a nice view, but it also adding value to the natural biodiversity and within the public open space. Other examples are like in the urban parks. So these are very common kind of examples within the parks and the public open spaces in Western Australia. So on the top left, you see there are some pits and pumping stations. They're helping to clean the water, and also on the down right-hand side, you can see there are pollutant traps. So which is actually like playing a big role in cleaning the water and trapping all the pollutants in the like the beginning of the process. But you can also achieve the as I mentioned before about the surface. So pervious surface, creating the pervious surface within the parks or in your courtyard would be really helpful for achieving those kind of like benefits of the water sensitive cities. Another big example, like this is like a large scale projects of water sensitive urban design, which is called constructed wetlands. The constructed wetlands are in a large scale, and it needs the involvement of various organizations within the city. So it's probably like engineers, planners, botanists, and then probably environmentalists. They need to work together to create this kind of nice environment. This is one example from city of Bayswater in Perth metro area. So there was a derelict wetland in Eric Singleton, which is like a small kind of like patches close to the Swan River. So we have the river, the main river coming across the city, which is the Swan River. So this wetland close to the Swan River. And this is a gateway of stormwater going into the river. So on the like the top picture, you can see which is like very polluted, full of algae, taken in November 2014. So they removed the local council with help of different other organizations like water corporations and local environment, Swan River Trust. So different. So it's like a collaborative project. So they removed the topsoil completely from the picture in 2015, and you can see that in 2016 they artificially created a nice environment for native vegetations, and then from there you can see in 2016 the picture. So it's like a natural gradient which is coming through the wastewater coming from the households, and it is recycled and through the natural filtration process, and then it is going to the Swan River. So this is a big scale kind of like a project telling about the nutrient stripping process to get the kind of like clean water. Another example of naturalized urban drainage. So this is an example from city of Canning. And you can see in 1965, which is like very, there is nothing, no development around that places. But if you go to 2000, 2001, and 2005, and recently in 2010, after doing the revitalization of that drainage system, you can see a lot of development happening around there. So from there, you'll be able to understand the economic benefits coming out from the practice of water-sensitive urban design. Very recent example from city of Bayswater. This is just revitalization of a old drainage system, and you can see that they kind of like created a park, which is like a pop-up park. We also call it Ninja Park. And then is the drainage, old drainage system is like full of kind of like a native plants, and there are some kind of like walkways around there. So this is just to give you an idea how we can convert the old like the derelict sites into a very nice kind of environment through the application of water sensitive urban design practices. So it is just like creating a living stream from a very old drainage system. These are like a couple of examples that you can see in in Perth suburbs, how we can create pervious surface in the urban area, and also like how we can kind of like channelize the rainwater in different places. So while there is a popular practice and the local government and engineers are currently practicing different sorts of water sensitive urban design, as I mentioned in the previous slides, but the cities are also kind of competing each other, how they can like kind of achieve the objectives of the water sensitive urban design goals. So we have identified 7 indicators to see that how different cities are achieving the goals of water sensitive cities. And it includes like ensuring good water sensitive governance, how the government and different organizations are working together, increasing community capital. So whether the community is aware enough to participate in this process, equity of essential services, improve productivity, and so on and so on. I'm not going to go in details because I'm aware about the running out of time as well. So just to give you an example, like, recently from a national project, Water Sensitive Cities, we actually get a kind of like a comparative picture of different cities and in terms of like at what extent they have achieved the water sensitive goals. So having these 7 indicators, you can see that we have the spider diagram nicely showing that how far the cities have achieved this. And actually if you can remember the first heuristic water sensitive or water transition framework that I showed you from the like the Suarez city, drain city, and coming out from there. So in that framework, how the city is performing. So for an example, like this framework, we can actually say that Perth probably currently sitting in the waterway city or water cycle city. It's not yet a long way to go to achieve the indicators of water sensitive urban design, water sensitive cities. So this is a nice way of indexing or competing each other, and you can actually find out where your city is currently sitting in this framework. So the question is that how we can assess the benefit we are getting out from water sensitive urban design practice, because you are getting amenities, and that is more like qualitative. So if you like spend half a day in a park, and you can say that, oh, I've got like maybe $2 of happiness from there. We can't really say. So we need, these are like non-market values. We actually can't price those values. So we need to find out some kind of assessment tool through which we can actually measure the benefit coming out from water sensitive urban design practice. So we have mainly two different types of assessment approach. One is called revealed preference method. Another called is stated preference method. So these are very simple, like revealed preference method is that you can actually see some kind of like, this is like more visual identifiable benefits. For an example, like the housing price, we call it hedonic analysis. So if you look into the data of the housing price from like last 5 years or 10 years, and if you compare that, oh, after having a successful water sensitive urban design project, housing price maybe has gone up by 2% or 5%. So from this data, this is more like a revealed data. You can actually say that we have achieved something throughout these kind of practices. The other could be like a stated preference method. So this is more like a survey based. So if you give some choices to the community, and then you can ask questions. So it's more like choice experiment. So you can ask people like, what kind of water garden or rainwater garden you want? Do you want with just like a small native plants, or you want a kind of like shrubs or maybe a bigger canopies in there? So when you add more kind of dimension into the rain garden, it will cost higher, and it will go to the tax or the rates of the community. So whether the community is willing to pay more to get more environmental benefits. So we know that all people are not similar. So I'm probably some people, they are not interested to pay much higher for the environmental benefits, but some people are. So there is a lot of scope for the government and the local government agencies to invest money for environmental education. So people are more willing to pay for this kind of adoption or practicing more water sensitive urban design practice. So that is more like a stated preference method. So we talked a lot about the Australian cases, but I've quickly investigated some of the practices in Indonesian context as well. So there, like, I'm very surprising to see that, like, in Indonesian cities, this is also been started, and then looked into two literature, which is very interesting. So one is in Bogor, Indonesia. They're talking about participatory public space design, and they have applied kind of like a solution tree in the city to solve different problems, and they have utilized water sensitive urban design examples, that how those examples can be applied to have a better public open space, which is really interesting. So the lesson is that you need to have a more collaborative exercise. So you really need to get more information for the community, because if the community is not aware, then it is very difficult to achieve all these sustainability goals. Another example from Jakarta, which is actually like riparian landscape management. So this example is basically to manage the river to reduce the risk of the flooding in Jakarta city. So, and this is really another interesting example, because they looked into the river in a very different way. So they looked into the upper stream, middle stream, and the lower stream, and come up with a solution which is not like a blanket solution, but they devised the solution according to the area of the river. And you can see from the the photo or the diagram in the right hand side, in the bottom right hand side. It's basically telling about different water sensitive urban design practices along the coast. So these are some like great examples. So this is happening all over the world, and I think this is very important as well to if we really want to achieve the sustainable goals and kind of like make more resilient communities. I think these are like really interesting. So finally, this is my final slide. Talking about like, so how we should manage ourselves and what are the challenges. And this is not only Australia, I think this is very similar in Indonesia as well. So the first hurdle is the bureaucratic misalignment. We have many organizations with overlapping responsibilities, but we also have silos that we don't talk each other. So maybe the engineers are working by themselves, maybe planners are working by themselves, and we are not talking each other. So we need to find out the way how can we integrate, we have more collaborative way, and to reduce the red tape in the bureaucracy. Because it's like not only managing the hard infrastructure, but also with the livability and the soft infrastructure or within the community. And it is about the resilience. So obviously, like we need to find out more options, how we can create more integration and collaboration, and also community-driven ideas and concept within the planning system. I think that's very, very important if we want to really achieve the goal of water-sensitive cities. So I think that's all from me. Mada, I'm not sure, like I'm in time. Yeah,
yes, in time.
little bit over probably.
It's but, okay.
Yeah. So that's all, and I'm very happy to have your questions and any queries.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Swapan. Actually, we have like a Q&A session in the end of our session, so maybe the participants should a little bit patient to ask Dr. Swapan. Yeah, okay. So before we jump to our next lecture, I would like to read a little bit the curriculum vitae of Bapak Dr. Jawoto. Okay, actually, Pak Jawoto is my teacher, my lecturer during my school. So I would like a little bit. I would like to read a little bit. So Bapak Dr. Insinyur Jawoto Setyono is an associate professor at the Department of Urban and Regional Planning. He is a planner and planning academic by education. His teaching and research focuses are on regional development planning and its related issue. Okay, so I don't want to ask more time. So I would like to ask Pak Jawoto to give a lecture directly so we can spend more time to Q&A session. So Pak Jawoto will give us a lecture about Indonesian planning system, sustainability, principle, implementation, and reality. Okay, thank you. Please, the screen is yours, Pak Jawoto.
Okay, thank you, Mada. Good morning, everyone. This is an honor for me to participate in this international lecture series done by the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Diponegoro University, because I think it's a good step to make our effort for so-called internationalization in our program. I will make it shorter so that we will have more time to discuss what I want to present today, which is I think quite different with those Dr. Swapan just presented earlier, because it is like looking something from the sky. So Let me share. I hope that the size of my presentation is big enough, not in presenter's view.
Yes, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thanks again, Mada, for the opportunity to share my understanding, my knowledge on Indonesian planning system, especially that related to the sustainability principles, implementation, and then after the contents about the concept and the Indonesian planning system, then I will present something that like the factual condition of our region and cities in Indonesia. So to discuss that, then I divide my lecture today into 3 different parts. The first one is about the general concept of sustainable development, which is until now has been subject of debate and discussion. And then the planning system in Indonesia, there are 2 different kind of system. The first one is what we call it the development planning, and the second one is social planning. And then the last part of my presentation will be about the implementation of the planning system and the challenge that may have now and as well as in the future. So I think we may have done that the original concept of sustainable development was there when the Brundtland report stated that the ability of humanity to ensure that it meets the needs of present generation without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. It's quite broad concept, and it has ignited many interpretation, discussion, debates, especially in the context of planning, because some say that planning is essentially sustainable development itself. And in the planning context, that sustainability can be divided into two streams or 2 main questions. Are we planning for sustainable cities and region, or it is just a sustainable planning? But we are not going to discuss this into more details. But the latest discussion in these subjects widely offers the needs for indicators in relation to other development concepts like the livable cities and then resilience and the last paradigm like combining resilience and sustainability. And behind that discussion, in fact, that the urbanization process has become one of the major global challenges at the moment, especially in the cities in global south. This is the new terms to replace the developing country system that were used in the past time. And from the statistic, as well as Indonesia, global and as well as Indonesia, that it indicates that in the next 3 or 4 decades that there will be about 70% of global population will be living in cities. And the question about the role of cities in development is now even more important because of the recent COVID-19 pandemic, because the question of urban role in spreading and preventing the virus is there, because it is like that the virus live in the cities, not in rural areas. And because of that, then the sustainability and planning need to be reconsidered, especially when we want to balance urban and rural developments in the changing context to the development of technology, because now the separation between urban and rural is not as clear as before. And also there is a tendency of new path of economic development, which will be based mostly on the tourism and knowledge, and also the application of internet to foster economic growth, as well as the new challenge that planners around the world will face in the next future, like the issues of climate change, the issues of energy supply, and also the increasing risk of disaster that happen everywhere, like what we are seeing today in Indonesia and many cities in Java, and as well as in the other islands in Indonesia, is now suffering from severe flooding. And according to UN Habitat, from their published book about the guideline for urban and territorial planning, that planning has some roles to foster sustainable cities and regions. At regional level, for instance, that planning can foster economic development by promoting regional economies of scale and agglomerations, as well as increasing productivity and prosperity, especially by strengthening urban-rural linkages. And the current issue is also a concern about the adaptation to climate change impact by reducing disaster risk and the intensity in the use of energy. And then the most important thing, the role of planning at regional level is that it must address social and spatial disparity among regions. At urban level, there are some role of planning to achieve sustainable cities and region. The first one is to prioritize investment decisions, to encourage synergies and interaction between separate urban areas, because we know that, especially in the Indonesian context, that there is a discrepancies between some areas within one single city. And then from land development perspective, that the planning should also contribute to the protection of environmentally sensitive areas, like Dr. Swapan just presented earlier. And this can be done by the regulation of land markets, even though that it is quite difficult to do this kind of policy in the context of developing countries as well as in Indonesia. And then to minimize the transport and service delivery cost, because by having a good land use plan, then the average travel time from one point of activity to other point of activity will be reduced, and then it can minimize the overall cost. And the last thing that planning can have important role is just to increase residential and economic densities by promoting more vertical development. Okay, I got this interesting diagram from an article written by Australian scholars too. I think Yigit Kanler is from QUT in Brisbane, and he proposed what he called with integrated planning for sustainable development by integrating the normative process. We know that in planning process, we have a normative process starting from define problems and then formulating goals and objectives, and then developing alternatives, and then evaluate the option and so on. Integrating this normative process with something that he called with non-compliant evaluative criteria, and then with addition to the compliant evaluative criteria, which is derived from the sustainability assessment. So we will have an integrated planning process by combining criteria of sustainability with the normative planning process. So this is the framework that proposed by Kanlat. And then I also found two interesting proposals. The first one is from Mike Douglas. He studied about the urban system composition in Indonesia, and this is a unique characteristic that we have in Indonesia because we have what he called with the cluster urban system. So actually, that in Indonesia we hardly have as theory said about the hierarchical model of urban system, and the hierarchy was used by many scholars to propose the growth pole models based on the composition of core urban regions and the core urban region surrounded by secondary cities and secondary cities surrounded by third-tier cities and so on and so on. So factual condition in Indonesia is difficult to apply this kind of concept. So that Douglas proposed the what he called with the cluster or network urban system planning, and it is also in line with what Roberts proposed about the corridor of development, especially that include the development of secondary cities. And I think this proposal is appropriate for the context of Indonesia, especially in the recent times when the development of infrastructures in Java Island and other islands was done by the Jokowi government. So the link now between the large urban region and a smaller urban areas easier than before. So it can create the corridor development in the next future. And that the corridor development will benefit not only the development of large cities, but also for smaller urban areas. So this is about the conceptual framework that we can consider as a theoretical background to implement the sustainability principle in urban and regional planning. Now, I will be presenting about in very short, the current planning system in Indonesia. If we discuss about the planning system in Indonesia, we must mention two different systems. The first one, we call it with development planning. Development planning is part of the change made by national government after the end of Suharto administration that was in power for more than 30 years before it fell in 1998. And it was not the continuation of the previous system, but it is like the improvement of the old system. by having some planning documents that integrate the need national governments and provincial government, and as well as local government. And the new planning system was also based on the new paradigm at the time, which was introducing strategic thinking and planning, because all the planning documents are initiated by the vision and mission statement at all levels. And then the last thing that we need to mention about development planning is that it also supports the chief and central local relation and policy process, because during New Order administration, the role of central government was very strong, and it was somehow neglecting the importance of local government in the policy process. So according to this system, at national as well as regional and local level, Indonesia has 3 different planning documents. The first one is the long-term development plan. The second one is the midterm development plan. And the last one is annual development plan or working plan. And the last document will be the basis for local, provincial, and national government to formulate annual public budget. So that is why this is an important shift in our planning system in Indonesia, because it is like that integrating planning with the budgeting process. The second system is spatial planning. Initially, the spatial planning law was established in 1992 after a very long absence of normative reference in regulating spatial development in Indonesia. So after Indonesia had our national independence in 1945, we had not had a specific national law that regulating spatial development until the establishment of our first spatial planning law. The first spatial planning law was initiated by the huge land use conflicts in some major areas, especially in Java, because of the urbanizations, economic boom, because of the increase in oil price in 1970s and 1980s. And essentially that the planning system, the first version of planning system in Indonesia adopted the discretion planning system, with which some literature say it is the UK or British planning system. But the first amendment of the planning system in 2007 introduced the approach of zoning, which is American style of planning. So after 2007, we essentially combine the 2 different paradigm in planning, 2 different approaches in planning: discretionary planning, which is originate from the British planning system, and then the regulation planning system, which is the American type of planning system. Some say that by the adoption of 2 different kind of approach, it will create a better spatial arrangement in Indonesia. But Later, we will note that there is still a problem in the application of the planning system. So according to the spatial planning law, there are 5 different classifications of spatial planning. But the dominant type of planning is based on the administrative boundary. So until now, we have more than 500 local government units in Indonesia, almost 100 municipalities, and the rest is district government. And every district and city government has developed the spatial planning. But other type of planning is like only the content of this administrative based spatial plan. So, for example, spatial planning that is based on the spatial system, like regional system, we don't have this kind of document, but they are integrated in administrative spatial plan, either in national, provincial, and local level. So this is our planning system, and this is the type of plan we have according to each planning system. In development plan, we have a long-term development plan, 20 years, and then mid-term development plan, 5 years, and annual implementation plan or working plan, which I said earlier that this plan is the basis for local government to formulate local budgets. In spatial plan, we will have national spatial plan and provincial spatial plans, and district, regency, and city spatial plan. And the time horizon of this plan is same with the development plan, 20 years. But we also have other plans, and the plan is now also integrated by ocean-based or marine spatial planning, according to the last amendment of our national spatial planning law, with the implementation of a new plan that focus to create employment and to foster economic growth. Last year, the Jokowi administration enacted a new law that amend more than 10 basic law, including spatial planning law, and then environmental law, and then forestry law, as well as the law on the relation of central and local government. So now the spatial plan not only cover land use plan, but also cover marine spatial plan. So both are included in the spatial plan document. This is a quite complicated relationship between the two planning systems, because it is like the questions of chicken and egg. Which one is the first? According to the law, that when spatial plan is formulated, it should refer to the development plan, and vice versa. So it is important to note this one, that in reality, it is difficult to spatial plan to have effective measures, because the spatial plan has become flexible regulatory measures. It means that there is no obligation for local government to be responsible to the implementation of the plan. It's quite different with development plan, because at the end of the head of local government and its tenures, he or she must report to the local parliament as part of the accountability process. Because development plan is part of the budgeting process, and budgeting process provide money for development program. This is from planning perspective, especially for those who study and then practice spatial plan in professional level. It is quite disturbing that we see that many spatial plans cannot be implemented because of the lack of budget support from local government. That's the problem with our planning system in Indonesia. Now, the content of sustainability concept in the planning system. It is interesting that recently that both the development planning and spatial planning system start to adopt the principle of sustainable development. In development planning, by the implementation of presidential regulations in 2017, about the implementation of sustainable development goals. And based on this presidential decree, then local and national government should formulate the action plan of the SDGs. And not only that, because there is also obligations to integrate SDGs indicators into sectoral development policies and programs. At local level, it even further the development and adoption of sustainability concept, because by having the Ministry of Home Affairs regulations in 2018, that every formulation of medium-term development plan at local level should adopt the indicators of sustainable development goals. It is a new development. While in spatial planning system, the applications of sustainability principle is more at conceptual level. Like there is a statement that the general objective of spatial planning is to have the secure, comfort, and productive and sustainable living space throughout the country. But there are also some other details like the establishment of minimum threshold of protected areas, which is 30% at regional level, as well as 30% at city level. And then there is also obligation from the planning guideline that to consider the carrying capacity in formulating and doing analysis of spatial development. And then recently there is also regulation from the Ministry of Forestry and Environmental Management, the implementation of strategic environmental analysis and assessment in plan formulation. So every local government, before they have the spatial plan legally binding, they must comply with the principle of strategic environmental assessment or analysis. And they need also to have the approval from the Ministry of Environment. And at practical level, there's also the issue of climate change, disaster risk, and the preparation of planning document. So the sustainability concept and principle are there in our planning system, but if we look then in the case and realities, we may have different perspective. This is the latest map that portray the urban and rural composition in Java Islands. The red mark indicate what it is called by the consortium of urban experts from European Union that provide this analysis and data set. It is the core urban area. And the yellow one is a cluster urban area. And the green, light green one is the high density rural areas. And the rest are the unoccupied land. So we know that from this map that in the next maybe 2 or 3 decades to come, that Java will be transformed into very huge mega urban regions with the total populations, but I think more than 50%, sorry, 60% of Indonesian total populations. And 70% of that will be living in urban area, either in big or smaller city. So can we think that this is a sustainable trend? And looking for more detail within the regions, I take this from in Central Java, we call this area as the Joglo-Semar triangle that link the 3 major cities, Semarang at the north, and then Yogyakarta in the south, and Surakarta in the east. So this is the urbanization trend in this area. And this trend is now even higher. Why? Because there has been a massive infrastructure development that link these 3 cities. Now there is a commuter rail system that connect Yogyakarta and Surakarta, and the development construction of toll road that link Semarang and Yogyakarta, as well as Yogyakarta and Surakarta, is now underway. And then the new Yogyakarta International Airport is now also linked to Yogyakarta city by the railway train. So in the next, I think, 2 or 3 decades, this triangle will be as important as Jakarta and Bandung in the urban development in Indonesia. But looking inside the regions, we see that there is a tendency of urban primacy with Semarang play a major important role. And we know that this is not sustainable according to the rank size distribution principle. So it is also the questions of sustainability at regional level. And if we look even further inside the single city, you know that the city like Jakarta has been growing very rapidly. And the last growth of Jakarta is like supported by the government policy to construct a new toll road that link the internal Silker Road in the city with the outer toll road outside the Jakarta area. The similar development has also happened in smaller metropolitan area like Bandung and Semarang, as we can see from the maps. So there is some question about the availability of green area and then the increasing density as well as the phenomena of urban sprawl. And also the questions of the compactness of the city, which is, according to some scholars, is one of the criteria to foster sustainable urban development. And the problem can be seen also at the smaller urban area. So it is like that size doesn't matter in terms of urban problems. So this is the Ungaran town. Ungaran town is just maybe 5 kilometers from Semarang. And we can see from the map that the urban sprawl phenomena is also there in the smaller urban area. And it is not only in Ungaran, but it also happens in other small towns in Java and as well as in the island outside of Java. So there is a question about the effectiveness of spatial plan to regulate the spatial development at various levels in Indonesia. And the response is still the same. This is my last slide. So whatever the problem, then the spatial planning is still like this one. So we only have two maps. The first map describes the factual conditions, and the second map is the plan condition in the next 20 years. But between the two different point of time, there is no activity how to implement. This is like that the lack of link between plan, development, and control. Why this is so? Because, as I mentioned before, that spatial plan is not fully integrated with development plan. So there is the problem of coordination between central and local government, and there is also a problem of coordination among the local agencies. Those who are responsible for development planning document do not necessarily engage those who are responsible to formulate and to implement the spatial plan. This is our big homework to make especially our spatial plan to be more effective in the future. So that's all, I think. Thank you very much. Terima kasih, and matur nuwun is Japanese terms for thank you. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Jawoto. Yeah, it's very fruitful slide and presentation, and we really like to invite, and I would like to make a little wrap about the two presenters today. How this very interesting with Dr. Swapan say about great Australian dreams, and then how about the shift in urban management, and also talk about the water sensitive urban design concept into the reality and how does it works, and then the things that I noticed in my note is about how we live with water in the city actually. And then from Pak Jawoto, we have very many perspective about Indonesian planning system. Several things is about how the spatial plan and the development plan in Indonesia not integrated one another. And this is our big homework to deal with the challenge in the future to make it effective. Okay, so I don't want to ask more the time. I will invite the participant to join with our discussion. So maybe if you want to ask something, please you can raise your hand directly, and we will open mic and ask directly to Dr. Swapan or Dr. Jawoto. And then if you don't have a chance to open mic and raise your hand, you can just directly type your question in the chat. Okay, yeah. While waiting, actually, maybe I have a question if allow it. So, okay, Dr. Swapan, actually, can you give some information or maybe a little bit highlight to us to implement the water sensitive urban design concept? Actually, what is the key point to make it works actually? Yeah, based on we have many assessment, we have many things. Oh yeah, actually, okay, maybe I will keep my question because we have one question from Pak Ruku. Okay, moderator has don't have a lot to ask actually.
Yeah, I think it's okay, Bu Mada. You still
Okay.
Keep your questions. I think it's
Okay.
interesting questions.
So, please, participant. I'm sorry, I asked one question to Dr. Swapan. Yeah, my
just a short questions,
yeah.
to Dr. Swapan, to comment the development of a city of Perth, metropolitan Perth, which is spread across the, I think it's west coast of Australia.
Yeah.
And then it's quite ironic because it is the way people in Australia live too close with the water.
Yeah.
And then the consequences is they try to locate in premium locations, which is next to the water. And it's a great problem with the infrastructure expansion maybe. And then it's depend on a private transportation, as you mentioned before.
Yeah.
And then what is the like a planning response from the city governments or maybe state governments with that kind of situation?
Yeah. All right. Thank you for your question. In fact, like Australian people likes the water and also likes the bush. So they try to live close to the bushland or forest and also to the water. So that's making the things like sprawling and living far. By nature, they like to have a very quiet suburbs. So and apartment living is not popular at all. So that's the main problem. So in fact, like as like I mentioned in my presentation, is after 2009, there is a realization from the government side to go for urban consolidation. So there are a number of projects and policy you will see that are promoting consolidation. So that means that the recent target is that around like, so we are expecting 3.5 million population by 2050. And the proposal is that 60% of the new dwellings will be located within the inner suburbs. So that's kind of target set by the government that we can't go outward. We have to develop inner suburbs because there are scope in there. So that is one response, and then we are trying a number of different sort of living styles. So recently I wrote in an article which I'm proposing is a small lot housing. So the small lot housing is that you can still have your great Australian dream that you have a single house, but your lot size will be like 180 to 100 square meters. So very like a 2-story house, but in a small lot. So from there, it's kind of like a balance between the Australian dream and also like the higher density. So those kind of things are kind of like government is trying to implement. The other problem is that the private sector. So the private sector is the investor for the dwellings and for the apartments. But when there is a lack of interest on apartment living or high density living, the private sector are kind of like scared to invest money in that area. And because of the different high density project, there are a lot of protest from the community. there you'll find, like in the newspaper and in the academic literature as well, people really don't like to see more density. And probably in the picture you saw that the city center, you'll see the high rise, but after that you'll see all the single story houses. And also, like there is a restriction from the local government. We call it residential code. So residential code 20 means that you can have only the low density single detached house. And when we move up to residential code 80, then you can build the multi-story buildings. So local government are not releasing or increasing the residential code higher because they know that, like, there are a lot of protests, there are a lot of kind of like this community sentiment is against the density, high density living. So there is a bit of like mixed approach. Government is trying higher density, the community is not towards the higher density. Private investors are a bit confused, like which way will go, who will go first, as like Professor Jawoto mentioned, like probably egg and chicken, like who will go first for the development. If they develop something which they can't sell, it's not profitable, and private sector is always after like the profit. So there's a bit of like great dilemma around that area.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
For your explanation, interesting.
Okay, thank you very much for the question, Pak Rufu. Or maybe Pak Jawoto want to add something, a little bit comment, because we relate about the case from Dr. Swapan with the planning principle actually. Maybe Pak Jawoto can add a little bit about this from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Mada. I think it is interesting to have this kind of like of shifting from the drainage-based city and then water-sensitive city. How then the local government and state government in West Australia to foster this kind of shift from traditional way of seeing waters and then the new way of seeing waters as part of our urban fabrics.
So our planning system is that the money is with the state government. So they give the money, but the implementation is done by the local government, which is like the city councils.
Yeah.
So the broader metropolitan plans are coming out from the state government. And then within that broader context, local government like apply those kind of plans in there. So the thing is that like when the government is promoting higher density, then the question is that the traditional landscape within the city will be kind of disturbed or destroyed, because when you are converting like the open spaces with the buildings to increase the density, then we are losing those like traditional like the spaces that we used to have. So the local government is basically the main actor in applying those water sensitive urban design features. Because like when there are new development, they are putting this kind of application with the planning system, so that like because of the urbanization, we are having that heat island effect or kind of like the pollution, people are moving around. So these are kind of like a alternative solution that it's kind of like reducing the impact from urbanization. So this is basically taken by the local government to have this kind of feature. And because like it adds to the public amenity and overall environmental quality of the suburbs. So people are also finding it very useful. And as I mentioned, like it is adding value to your housing price and also the overall kind of like city environment. So this is now becoming popular to utilize those kind of principles when you'll see a new development. And also like there are a lot of revitalization that the old site or old development the local government are also putting more effort to revitalizing those places to get those kind of benefits from water sensitive urban design. So the water becomes very important. And also like when there are a lot of urbanization, then there's a flooding issue, and then we are running out of the groundwater. So there is a lot of challenges coming up. So I think from those kind of realization, the city governments are increasingly trying to apply those kind of water sensitive urban design within the new development, as well as they are putting in the revitalizing the old development. Is that answer to your question?
Yeah. That's interesting. Thank you, Dr. Swapan. I think there is one question from the student.
Yeah, we have another question from student. Maybe I would like to invite Wildan Bramantio. If you available, please you can like open mic and open cam. We would like to see you directly, and you can ask directly. Please, Wildan.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Can anyone hear my voice clearly?
A little bit noise, but we quite clear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
I'm
please.
sorry for the disturbance because I'm not in my house. So the question I wanted to ask is, we have this project in Kediri, one of the regions in Indonesia, and I'm curious as to how we can apply the water sensitive urban design concept, but in a mountainous area, not like the ones that the examples given by professor in Waterfront City. So yeah, from the perspective of the design, of the physical design, or the strategic function, what parts of it in mountainous area that we should utilize to apply this concept, especially, and maybe in a development manner, and the policies. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Wilden, for your question. Yeah, I think the water sensitive urban design principles and the practice are very much contextual. So I really accept your point that the examples like we have here is more kind of like a flat topography because like we really don't have that much hilly area here. We have bit of hilly suburbs like in the eastern side, but there is like very low density and there, but it's mostly flat here. And in also like most of the like the major Australian cities are like that. So like I mentioned few things in terms of the scale of adaptation with the system, water sensitive urban design system. There are practices that you can apply within your household, and some of the practices are at larger scale. So probably in a like neighborhood scale or city scale. So in the mountainous area, you still have the option to apply those kind of principles which are related to the household. For example, storing the rainwater, or maybe the kind of like storage and collection of rainwater and recycling the water. Those kind of applications could be useful for your household. Probably applying water efficient fixtures within the house. But the problem with the water efficient fixtures is very expensive, and people really don't want to spend money for those kind of like environmental benefit. So the other thing would be like you need to put more kind of effort for community awareness to make them understand that these are the things that needs to be done for the common benefit. So and if you go outside when that is hilly area, probably you can have more plantation in there. So the thing could be like you need to channel the water in such a way that can serve the, like it's like I would suggest maximize the benefit of the terrain, like the topography, and which will be different types of design. I think like we really need to think about like what kind of water sensitive urban design can be developed within those kind of like hilly or mountainous area. I'm like, so I really don't have very exact example like for those kind of topography, but I can see there are definitely opportunity for individual level. At least that can be the starting point, and maybe we can have more further research. And as I said, this is very contextual, so we really need to treat each area for different set of water sensitive urban design practice. And it is not like the planning strategy, like probably getting the British planning system or American planning system cannot be readily applied in Indonesian context. This is the similar kind of, and like I'm originally from Bangladesh, we see this kind of diffusion of planning ideas, which is not locally driven. So we really need to work through how we can kind of like develop our local kind of planning approach. And that's why the planning system needs to be very collaborative and community driven. So you actually know the demand of the community. And I think like Professor Jawoto mentioned about those, like how you can have more like collaborative planning in there. And definitely there are practices in Indonesia as well.
Okay, Wilden, do you have maybe any comment or any feedback about the explanation of Dr. Swapan?
Yes, maybe a little bit more. I'm curious about the maximization of the benefits of the terrain. What can be done or what can be gained on there for this particular concept to neighborhood level, and is it affordable or not? Thank you.
So Professor Jawoto wants to add anything, or?
Yeah, maybe Pak Jawoto want to add something.
At neighborhood level, you mentioned about that, Wilden?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just to add some like background information to Dr. Swapan, that Wilden is part of our group of students that is now doing planning studio in Kediri area. Kediri is one region in East Java province, and there is a massive new airport development in that area, which is initiated by a private company. This is a cigarette company, PT Gudang Garam, that is based in the city, and the value of the projects is I think around 10 trillion rupiah.
Okay.
Maybe it's about how many billions in Australian dollars, but it's very huge money, and it is initiated by the private sectors, and this is the first one in Indonesia, this kind of project. And I think our students are curious about the impact of this kind of development, because the airport developments has already converted the paddy field into the built-up area, and I think the area surrounding the proposed airport was previously at the centers of mango.
Right.
So, and it is also surrounded by some rivers, and the problem is that the maybe the immediate impact, especially with the loss of some water streams because of the development of the agriculture. So how then at the you mentioned about the application of water sensitive designs in Australian context, but in Indonesia we have a lot of waters everywhere. Waters everywhere, and just last week there is a very huge flash flooding in the mountainous area in East Java, and I think there are 6 people dead because of the flooding, and I think more than 200 households evacuated from the area. And the problem with that is that there is huge land conversion at the upstream area. So how you see this from your proposed water sensitive design?
Yeah, there's lots of complexity already within the context, and so I think like you familiar with the Maslow's like hierarchy?
Yes.
That you need to kind of like prioritize your development challenges, or kind of like how to address the planning problems. So there are issues with the land, and there are issues with the management of the river system, and there are some also the risk of losing the traditional land uses. For example, like that's the mango farming or the paddy fields, all those kind of things. So the water sensitive urban design principle actually not proposing like a new development or clearing the area, but it's telling about the revitalization. So if you have a kind of like derelict water system, or maybe a lake or a pond, or the coastline, so the principles are telling that you probably revitalize that, adding value to that, and then ensure maximizing the benefit you are getting from out there. So it's actually not like the nice pictures that I have shown is not like completely a new creation. It's basically just to revitalizing things. So we had some streams in there, we have some river in there, or maybe a like a derelict lake there. So what the local government is doing, that they are like kind of changing the pattern and things, and also like if you can remember the rain garden, this is something like in the corner of the road, which is like unused space, so informal unused space. So you try to do something in there. So that is one thing. There is another practice we are having is called like vase gardening. So the vase is basically the front courtyard. I'm not sure about Indonesia, but here the front courtyard after your post box is owned by the local government. So it's a public land, and this is like a informal space. The formal spaces are the designated parks where you can have tree plantation or the vegetation in there. But this vase area is kind of like underutilized. Nobody is taking care of that, because if I invest money, the next day the local government can come in and say that like we want to do something or put some utility services. So we are completely taking over this area. But what's happening now, the local governments are now formulating new policies that they will not claim that land. So they are suggesting or inviting the homeowner to have some green, like the trees or vegetation, or maybe a fruit garden. They are promoting those kind of vase gardening in front of their land, which is like also a type of water sensitive urban design practice, because you are having the vegetation and collecting the rainwater, serving those plants. So these are the unused space that are taken by water sensitive urban design strategies. So and this is like community is very much included or involved in there. It's not that local government can just do doing by themselves, but they are very much involving the community into that, and the community needs to contribute maybe physically or maybe in a monetary valuation, whatever. So I can give you some example like how they are promoting. They are having an annual award event where they are giving award to the houses who has like converted their wards in a nice way with some green areas. So they are having this kind of like promotional activities. So there are costs associated with that, but this cost is at the government level. But I think the residents have their own responsibility and then commitment to the environment and surrounding environment to contribute and participate. The other thing is that obviously like our local governments are very rich actually, like if I say, because they have budget and that everybody is paying rate, and they're like really like money is not that kind of issue in our local government areas. But obviously that is a big challenge in many Asian cities. And so obviously that is, some of the examples are very expensive, but not all of them. As I mentioned, if you can revitalize the unused space next to your household, that could be an example of water sensitive urban design practice. So you really need to think about that, how you can locally develop some ideas to support that. And as I said, you don't need to import all the ideas from Australia to apply in Indonesia, but you have to develop like according to the context, as you said, like, and as Professor Jawoto mentioned, like explained the problems are there. So you need to think about, consider all these problems and need to find out a solution which is more locally sensitive rather than imported from other countries. Is that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Dr. Swapan.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Wildan, for the question and our very fruitful discussion. Actually, we have another student that raised the hand to us, but he asked me
last
to.
Question.
Yeah, maybe the last question. And yeah, please, Sayafana, we call him Sae, a part of our student planning project 2 in Kediri. Please, Sae.
Apakah suara saya terdengar ya, Bu?
Ya, terdengar. And yeah, please say.
It's very noisy.
Yeah, it's a little bit noisy, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Karena mohon maaf sebenarnya karena saya belum bisa begitu lancar dalam berbahasa Inggris ya. Saya mau izin bertanya dalam bahasa Indonesia, mungkin bisa minta tolong Ibu nanti bisa ditranslatekan.
Okay, Dr. Swapan. Saya will ask in Indonesian language, so I will act as an interpreter here. Great. Okay, so please, Saya, you can ask, but not too long. Please just only short sentence, please. Thank you. Oh ya, singkat aja ya saya, jangan terlalu panjang. Makasih.
Baik, Bu, siap. Berkenaan juga dengan pertanyaan dari Mas Wildan sebelumnya. Jadi permasalahan dari penerapan konsep water sensitivity ini sendiri itu cukup sulit, lebih kepada lingkup regional ya Bu. Nah itu tuh bagaimana sih Bu penerapannya? Bagaimana penerapannya dalam lokasi yang dimana permasalahannya itu lebih kepada dekat dengan puncak, dimana itu mereka memang lebih susah untuk lahannya seperti lahan kering dan sebagainya, itu seperti itu Bu. Karena kan untuk apakah memang bisa diterapkan dan bagaimana improvisasinya seperti itu Bu.
Okay, I try to translate. I hope it's close with the what said say. Actually, saya asked about how the implementation of the water sensitive urban design in what is, because before you mentioned in the what in a high density etc. But there are also a region maybe like related with Wildan said in mountainous area, that maybe like a drought area, or he mentioned also about the specific area that really need water And yeah, the problem is there any like improvisation or the innovation deal with the specific characteristic of this region for the water sensitive urban design concept? I hope a little quite similar. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, like, so I mentioned 3 principles about water sensitive urban design, that treating city as a catchment, and then ecosystem services, and finally the community behavior. So these 3 principles, in fact, derived after the millennium drought in Victoria State. So this is like kind of similar background story. So so what is the lesson from the drought is that we need to have multiple water sources. So the problem comes if you completely rely on groundwater, which is traditionally all the cities do. So we need to find out what are the alternative water sources. The first principle of water sensitive urban design suggests that we need to maximize the sources for water. So what's happening in part is that we are investing money on purifying surface water. So if you can remember that I mentioned with a pie diagram that we are in the process of having more desalination plants. So the main source of water is we have the Indian Ocean next to the city. So the desalination plants we are establishing to kind of purify the water. So that is one. Another one is that you need to have more kind of like rainwater harvesting mechanism, that whenever you get rain, you like collect those. The other thing would be probably when you reduce the dependency on the groundwater, then you need to find more kind of like the surface water. But the other suggestion is that fit for purpose. So if you think about like you need to collect all the wastewater from your household, and if you can utilize that for your plantation, or maybe you can use it for irrigation purpose. So rather than organizing different source of water for irrigation, you can actually somehow connect the household water for irrigation. That would be a solution for that. So the option could be like it is very much like I'm not sure like what are the other sources in Indonesia, but I think these are kind of like a global practice. So in any country, you can have this kind of mechanism to maximize the number of sources for water. But I really like the word or the term fit for purpose. You need to find out what quality of water you need for what purposes. So in that case, recycling is very important. Reducing the water consumption. So if you see like the water corporation, which is the main water supply in Perth metropolitan area, they have a big promotion on how to reduce the water. And recently we are kind of suggested that finish your shower within 3 minutes or 2 minutes. Like, so you need to shorten the shower time so that you can save the water. So, and the like in the Australian suburbs, you'll see a lot of like lawn, which has like the grasses, and you need to water those lawns regularly. So what they do in this city is that during the winter, when we have a lot of rain, is opposite like the tropical area, we get rains when this is very cold. So is doubling up like everything. So during the winter, this is a closed period. We can't switch on our reticulation or irrigation for the lawn. It's completely prohibited. And if the council find that you are doing the irrigation during this kind of like rainy season, and you will be fined. Okay. And in the summer, they have a specific date when you can open up your irrigation again. So this kind of mechanism, which is like more like policy instrument, you can actually control the use of water. So water is very precious, and you need to find out the policy mechanism that how you can utilize in a more kind of like structured way, and you can kind of develop some way that you can maximize the stock of your current water. So these are like few examples, I think, very useful, and that can be utilized in any country. So one is instrumental measure, which is more like policy oriented. The other thing is more behavioral, and it's with the community. So this both the community behavior and the policy needs to come together to make the city more sustainable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is our last question because we run out of time, unfortunately, because we still have many things to discuss. Dr. Swapan, hope that we can up or it's like a further this collaboration maybe in the next years. Yeah, sure. Okay, so before we wrap up this session, I would like to give some closing remarks from the lecture, Pak Jawoto and Dr. Swapan, to say a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 sentence closing remark about the planning in sustainable city and region. I would invite Dr. Swapan first. Okay, maybe just like what the closing remark or message for us or anything you can as a closing.
All right. First, thanks for having me for this lecture. I really enjoyed, and I really like the questions by the students. They are really thinking about the planning problems and the solutions in there. So I'll just echo my previous statement, is that sustainable city is not like just with the policy you can change the city. So the behavior and participation are also very important. And we need to learn from each other. So I was just discussing with Mada and Professor Jawoto that we have established a research group at Curtin, which is called Global South Nexus. So the Nexus means that we really like to share our experience, and we need to learn from each other. So the flow, like from the Western countries to the Global South, it's not a one-way direction, which is like the traditional way, but we want the other direction. So how Indonesia is managing different disaster or planning problems, there are a lot of things to learn from there for Australian cities. I think that kind of nexus is very important for making the cities more sustainable. And we always blame the government, but my strategy is that we also have responsibilities. So we really need to come together and sit together and make a mutual discussion to solve any problem. I think that's the kind of the seed of sustainability for any context. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swapan. So the closing remark from Dr. Jawoto, please, Pak Jawoto.
Thank you, Mada, and also Dr. Swapan for this opportunity to discuss, and I hope that I also looking forward to having a bigger collaboration between our institutions. And for the planning for sustainable cities and region, I think as Dr. Swapan said that we need to have local versions of any plannings, because if we do not do like that, then it is only lost in translation. We can translate any development concepts globally, but if we don't have the local capacity to do that, and if we fail to adapt the concept, then it's useless for our plannings initiative at every area. Okay, thank you again, Dr. Swapan. Thanks, Mada, for these discussions. I think it's very interesting and fruitful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Jawoto. In Indonesia, we have tradition to wrap up our discussion with a photo session. So, So I would like to invite all the participants. Actually, we have like 225 participants for the peak today, but actually getting lost because they have like a schedule in another lecture. I'm sorry. So everyone, if you have any chance to open your camera, please, you can just open your camera. We will have like photo session. Thank you, Mina. You're still here. Thank you. Oh, we have also Papri Hadi who's still in driving. Thank you very much. And we have Bulandung who organized this lecture. Thank you. We have Pak Yudi as our Kaprodi. Thank you, Bu Yayu. Thank you for coming. And Bu Wiwandari Handayani. We have our head of department, Bu Wiwi. You want to say something maybe? Okay, thank you. Okay, I would take the picture. So everybody, you can see sustainability to cheese. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. First page. We have 7 pages, very much. Okay, I will take a picture. The second one. Okay, the third one. Yeah, we have also the 4th. Yep. Wait. There's so many today. Thank you.
We take pictures for all slides already.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Bu Mada.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I take all the slides until 7. Okay. Yeah. I finish it. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in our lecture series. And don't forget, we still have another lecture series. Please join us. Okay, thank you very much for Dr. Swapan, Pak Jawoto. Thank you for all. Thank you, Mina.
Okay, see you.
Thank you.
So
See you,
much.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Swapan, Pak Jawoto, Bu Mada.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum. Yeah. Stay healthy.